Hi everyone, so I'm back again to do another video for you. This time I'm going to do a peony, but I'm not going to do an ordinary peony because I've noticed a lot of people on YouTube do peonies. So rather than doing the conventional type, I'm going to do one called Bowl of Beauty, which is a bicolour peony which has sort of like creamy yellowy centre and the pink outlay. So we'll get on with it anyway, and I'll show you how you make it, and then you can see what I'm talking about. Right, so the first part I'm going to make is the centre part, which is this part here, which if you've done an open peony before, you will have seen this before, where you've got your pods. There's different ways of doing peonies. I've got some here that I've been doing for a cake, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to use, but this is the centre for a normal peony, which has got the closed in centre. And I think possibly the one that I'm doing now I might use because it fits in well with the design that I'm going to do. Anyway, so we'll start off with the centre part of the peony first of all. So I'm just going to get some, I'm using mostly 28 gauge wires here. So I'm just going to cut a few wires for these. And again, don't use your normal scissors, these are florist scissors. If you've got some wire cutters, they're better for you. If you've got florist scissors, then they're okay. So cutting big stems, that's why I use them for wires, and they're ideal for this job. So I'm cutting them into quarters, and we need some green paste, which I've already coloured. As I've told you before, I only use one colour for colouring green paste, and that is either Holly and Ivy from Squire's Kitchen or Christmas Green from Sugar Flare. So what I need to do is to make 3 centres. So we want 3 wires, and I need a bit more paste. I'm only doing the centre quite small for this one. If you're doing an open type peony, the normal type of peony, you might want to do them a little bit bigger. But that's entirely up to you. If you can get hold of a real flower when they're in flower in spring, then that's even better. So I'm going to do the ball of paste as normal. I'm going to make a tiny little hook on the end, shepherd's crook, into the ball of paste. It's about the size of a petit pois. Oh, that's a small garden pea to you and me. Into the paste, so that anchors that in, and then roll that into a little cone like you do when you're making your roses, but you need a bit more of a point on it. I'll just put that one out of the way. So we'll make another 2 of these. Now normally I only do 1 of each when I'm doing these videos, but because this needs to go together, that's the reason I'm doing the 3, so I can show you how it goes together as well when you've made your bits and pieces. So again, oops, dropped a wire. Butterfingers. Into your paste. Shape the top part into a fairly long cone. Then if you just check it against your other one to make sure that they're similar. It's not exactly the same, isn't that, but I'm not going to worry about a little bit of deviation, because if you look at flowers in your garden, nothing's perfect. Nature does whatever it wants to do, whereas here we have a bit more control over it when we're making it. I know everybody wants everything to be perfect, but the last time I went to the NEC, to the Sugarcraft exhibition, a lot of people have gone to the trouble of making dying flowers, which I thought was even clearer, because that looked a lot harder than making live ones, to be honest. I know it sounds a bit weird, but I think the thing is that people are looking for new ideas because the show has been going so long. There we are, there we've got all the 3 now. So the next thing I need to do is to get my tape. I'm using now a green tape here for everything. So what I'm going to do is stretch your tape to find out which is your sticky side. Whichever sticks to your fingers, that's that side. Oops. Do that again. That's that side, so I want to turn that over. As I've said before with people, when I'm doing these videos, I never cut out any mistakes. So if I drop something, break something or whatever, I will leave it in. Because things happen to us, that's life. Things don't always go as smooth as you would like. Now once I've got that together, then I can now pull my wires down into the tape. Just come down a little bit further, then I don't knock my ends off. So you want those to fit together. So if you pull them down one at a time, like that, bring them up together. I hope I haven't gone off shot then. I have a habit of going, because I can't watch the camera and watch what I'm doing at the same time, so I apologise if I went out of shot there. I do try and get better when I'm doing these videos as I go along, but it's a learning process with that as much as anything else. Right, so once you've got all those together there, now we want the top part to curl out like that. It's a bit like a joker's hat, isn't it, this, the centre of a peony. Don't need to use any glue because it's all taped together. So then we put that to one side to dry. Right, so next part. Since I've got the green paste out, I'll do the leaves first. I'm just going to do one leaf, and I'm going to do the calyx as well, because that's a bit of a strange calyx on this particular flower. I have only just made some of mine, so they may be soft when I put them together. And when you're putting things like this together, sometimes they're better when they're soft. So I need a bit more paste for that leaf. I'm just going to cut one leaf out. If you're using the groove board, use the groove side. If you haven't, if you're lucky enough to have one of these rolling pins that I've got, unfortunately the firm that I got them from, I don't know whether they're still going or not, because I was told that they may have gone out of business. So whether anybody else is doing them or not, I don't know. If you can get hold of one of these groove rolling pins, if you're like me and you're used to doing flowers fairly quickly and you need to do a lot, they come in really handy. Right, so I've got my groove down the centre there. I'm using a petal out of, this is actually a dahlia petal, believe it or not, but any cutter that's shaped like this, a leaf cutter or whatever, or you can cut it out freehand if you haven't got the cutters and you've got the cutting wheel, which is this tool here. You can cut them out freehand. This way we're getting them more even. But what you want of these is 3 of these leaves. Now a lot of this flower is done without veiners and cutters and that, apart from a rose cutter and this cutter that I'm using. They're the only cutters that I'm using. Most of it is done without cutters. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, again, get a 28 gauge wire when I can get hold of it. This is why you need nails when you're doing this job. I try not to get mine too short so I can get hold of these small wires when they're... Get your wire about at least 2/3 of the way up so it's not showing. Okay, and then what you need to do then is to get it onto your pad. Get your ball tool and thin your edge just to take that cut edge off. Now I've got a, where is it, a peony veiner here, but this one, I find that any cutters I get, they just don't fit at all. And then I saw this way done in a book, an Alan Dunn book, and he might be watching this because I know he comes on Facebook and he's promoting a lot of his classes. So I'm just going to use one side of it, pop that in, press. Now the central vein has gone a bit offside, that's because of the nature of the cutter, so just shape your leaf. That's not going to be seen anyway, because when you put them together in the flower, that's going to be hidden behind the flower, so it won't be seen. And then pop that onto your foam to shape and dry. Now you need 3 of those in each spray that you do. I've only done 2 sprays there, so I'll have to just put 2 sets of leaves on the ones that I've already made. The other part I'm going to do now, before we get onto the petals, is and the centre, is the calyx. Now there's 2 parts to this calyx on this flower, so I'm going to start off with a small round ball of paste. I'm going to roll that into a cone like that, but I'm going to roll it quite thin at the bottom like that, and then I'm going to pop a wire into it. Now if you're not using a paste that's sticky, this is quite sticky, it's a paste I've made myself, but if you're using something like Squire's Kitchen paste, that's fine. If you're using something like Renshaw's, it's not as sticky, and I find that you need to put glue on your wire if you're going to do anything like this, otherwise things come off. Just thin it down onto the wire like that. Again, the back of any veiner, you just want the flat back, that's all you want, and press, and just roll that back onto there again. There we are. So that's that bit. Then we'll go on to the next bit before I go on to the final bit. Small ball of paste, roll it into a sausage, put your wire up the sausage of paste so it comes out the other end. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to move that out of the way. Just roll that onto your wire. It's going to roll up your wire like that and down your wire. Get it quite thin like that, so it's almost as thin as the wire. There's a little bit on the just off the end there. I'm just going to take that off. I'm just going to measure that against some others that I've made, just to see how that comes out in length. That's okay. Thin it down at the bottom, and again at the top, and then back onto your board and get your veiner again and press down on it, so you end up with a long thin piece like that. I know the wire's showing, but they're going to be dusty anyway. And then what you do is curve that like that back. You can see that. Okay, and set that to one side to dry. The round one, I'm just going to come back to that for a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the edge to thin the edges off. You could use a small rose petal cutter if you don't feel confident in doing this, but no point in using excessive pieces of equipment if you don't need it. Large end of the bowl tool and go into the centre and cup it like that. Okay, set that to one side. Get rid of the green paste. Make sure you always wrap your paste up. I use these Ziploc bags. They come in handy for this sort of job, so I've all my different colours in different bags. I used to go through tons of these when I was teaching at college, because I used to be giving them out to all of my students all the time to keep the paste wrapped up. Right, now then, the petals. Now there's 2 different petals. There's an outer petal and an inner petal. So I'm going to start off with the outer petals first. Now I've got one here that I've already made ready for colouring. That's already done, so that's what we're aiming for. So start off by rolling your paste out. I need a bit more white fat on my board. You don't need a lot, just enough to keep your paste on the board so it's not going to come off, because when you're doing anything like this you need it to stay on your board until you're ready to thin your edges and that. So when you're rolling it out, you don't want it to be keep lifting it up and turning it over. It's not a piece of pastry. Fairly thin. And then I'm going to go in with my ridge rolling pin again and make a ridge down the centre so I can get my wire into it like that. Now I'm using the middle one of the large set of rose cutters to cut out these. Now you need 10 of these. I hope you've all got a pen and paper. If you haven't, stop the video and go get your pen and paper and write this down. So you need 3 leaves together in each set of leaves that you're going to have, and then you need 10 of these petals. Now for this I need a white wire. I've got some already cut here. We're only using thin wires here. I think this is a 30 gauge wire, is this one. And get that into your paste. Because your paste is quite thin, you don't want anything too thick. And just ease your wire up your groove, or ridge I should say. I've got it up to about there. The reason for that is if you break anything, it's a lot easier to repair it if you've got your wire up your centre, so you've got that backbone to hold it in place if you do have to repair anything. Right, so once that's done, that goes onto your pad. Get rid of that paste, seal that up. I have a load of things going on at the same time, so I'm sorry if it looks a bit messy on here, but I've got a lot of different flowers that I'm doing for this cake design that I'm going to do, so I have got a lot going on. Right, so I'm just going to thin the edges just gently, and then I always prefer to do this on my hand. This is the back of the petal, so get your silk veining tool, start from the centre and in a fan motion roll out like that, and again in the centre and roll out like that. And then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to turn it over and repeat on the other side. So this will be front side like that. And then if you get it on the edge of your finger, then just keep going round and keep the veins going in the same direction as the veins you've already rolled into it, and frill your edge. Just do it a little bit at a time, one section at a time, rocking backwards and forwards like that. I'm looking for a spare bit of foam because I've got that many things going on here. I've got things all over the place, so I'm just going to try and move that kitchen roll that's got some of the colour on I'm going to use. Here I've got all my bits and pieces on here, so I'll just take that one off because that's ready for colouring and pop that one in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently bend the wire and then pop that into the foam like that, so your petals are shaping themselves. Okay. Now the next petal I'm going to get is the inner petal, which is this petal here. Now we're not using any cutters for this at all. So what we need now is we need some white paste. I'll just get some white paste out of my box of paste. As I say, this is some paste I made myself. It's like one I got from, I can't remember whose recipe it came from. It's on YouTube. Well-known flour maker. But it's not his recipe, it's somebody else's. He's got it from somebody else. So if you have a look on YouTube, you'll find loads of people doing recipes for different things on there that you can use. You know, it's amazing what you can find. I just found a recipe for this flexible paste that you can use. I'm going to have a go with that. I haven't tried it yet, but I am going to have a go. Right, so Small ball of paste. Roll it into a bit of a sausage. Again, I want a white wire, and I should have one on here somewhere. I hope. No, come off. I'm going to have to cut one. I must have dropped one somewhere. Never mind. These things are sent to triers, and they surely do. I'll use a 28 gauge wire because I'm going to the next one up. Right, so this one, you can cut this into 6 when you're doing this one. I'm just going to cut this into 4. Because these aren't very big, you don't need very long wires on them. So what I'm going to do again, if your paste isn't sticky, put some glue on your wire, pop your wire into it, and then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to roll this down and make a cone. I think that's a little bit big, so I might have to take some paste off of this. Just try it and see. No, that's alright, is that? So I've made that into sort of an elongated cone, or a bud. Very similar to a bud. And again, get a veiner, flatten it, and then if you get your silk veining tool onto your hand, and then from the centre roll out and roll out to get some veins into it, like that. And then if you put it onto your board, and you need your Dresden tool for this tool here, which we used to use for putting veins in before we had rubber veiners, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to pull it out like that, and it sort of frills it and cuts at the same time. So go quite heavy on it like that, so you get this sort of jagged edge on it. Just keep going until you're happy with it. So we've got it like that. I'll put that against my hand so you can see it, and then bring your bottom in and roll that together, and then just curve that round a bit so it's not flat, like that. So put those to one side to dry. Right, so the next thing to do is to colour your things. And I should have one of those on there somewhere to colour, I think. Somewhere. Just move those onto there, then I can see what I'm doing. Now what I should have told you there, with those particular petals, you need a lot of these. You actually need 30 of these petals. And I think I've knocked one off my pad somewhere. That one there. That's the soft one. I should have another dry one somewhere to colour. Can't find it. Never mind. Right, so get rid of those bits of paste. So we'll get on to the colouring part. Now, first of all, those central flowers, because I can't find the one that I'd left to colour, I'm going to have to use the soft one. Doesn't really matter, it's not going to damage it. What I've done here is I've mixed some yellow and white together here. And I think I used sunflower with some white mixed in with it. But if they do paler colours in the range of colours anyway, because I use a lot of edible art now. That looking at it, I have actually got a yellow that is this colour. But if you haven't, then mix together some sunflower colour and some white to get a paler shade. And what you need to do is, with a brush that you use just for that, just brush from the base upwards. you're going to go about halfway up, and then the same on the back as well. So that's how far we've got with that. Just get rid of that one out, that powder out of the way. Get rid of that brush because we don't need that anymore. Now the next step I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these together, and what you need to do is to tape these together into threes. So again, I'm going to use the Nile green tape because that's what I'm using on this flower to put everything together. And I've got half width tape here that I'm using. I don't often use quarter width because it's a bit too thin, and I find that a lot of people struggle with it being so thin. So stretchy tape to start it off. That's the sticky side. So we'll just start off with that on there. Nip it in with your nail and twist that on, and then add in your other two pieces. Like that, and tape down. And you don't want to go because I've got white fat on my fingers and it's not twisting. Once I get it going, I'll be alright. Not behaving itself today. Like I keep telling people, when things go wrong like this, I don't cut it out, because if you cut it out, you can't tell people how to put it right. So that's why I leave it in. That's the soft one. We'll pull that out there and out there. So we've got like a little spray like that. So what I've done is, as I say, I've done 30 of these. So I've got 10 sprays with 3 in. Okay, I'm just going to pop those to one side. And then I'm going to come on to the petal colours. And I just noticed, I thought I'd coloured all my petals and I've just found another one. So I thought I could have done them all, but I haven't. Now what I've mixed here to do, I've mixed 2 colours together. I've got some rich burgundy and some blackcurrant from Edible Art, and mixed those together. Now I am doing this darker than it is in the actual book. There doesn't look to be different colours in this, it looks to be all one colour. But because of the cake that I'm doing, I am doing this darker than normal. So normally this would be a bit lighter pink. So first of all, start from the centre and brush upwards quite heavily with this, with plenty of colour. Don't forget to catch your edges as well, because I've used a pale pink on the edge. If you don't, that can show up and it can spoil the whole effect. So I've got that far up with the colour, and then from the top I'm going to start brushing in. Now a lot of people when they're demonstrating don't tell you why you do this, and the reason being, when you get a lot of petals together, like on a rose, we always start off with a darker colour in the centre and work out to a lighter colour. And the reason for that is because the petals are so tightly wound together, they appear to be darker than they really are. The outer petals look lighter because the light shines through them and makes them appear to be lighter. When you take them off, they're actually all the same. But in Sugarcraft, to achieve that, we do that by dusting different colours to get different shades of the same colour. So I'm using the same colour, I'm just using it lighter on the top edge than I am on the bottom edge. So the same on the back, and then again down from your edge, bringing it in. And don't forget to catch those edges, make sure you haven't missed anything. I had to go back into some of my petals because I had missed a little bit. With them being frilly, you need to get sort of really in between the frills. Sometimes you have to pick it up and just go over it a bit and just touch up where you've missed a little bit. So I'll just put that to one side and do this. Oh, that's a soft one. I haven't got another one. I had done them all. Smack my hands for not taking notice of what I'm doing. Right, so I'm going to get rid of that. I might as well come on to the leaves and the other parts to start off with. Now this colour's on here for something else, so I'm going to use I'm going to mix a darker green in with that, because I've got a light green and a lime green, and I'm going to mix a bit of darker green in with it, because being a peony and because I'm doing this, it depends on the colour of your peony. The lighter the colour, the darker the lighter the leaves. Same with roses as well. If you're going to do a deep red or burgundy or anything like that, then you'd have darker leaves than you would on a white or a yellow or a pale pink rose. So if I get my leaves out that I've done, and then just dust all over with that, just go up the centre just to make it a little bit darker, and then the same on the back. I'm having to be careful here because these aren't properly dried yet, but your backs are always darker than the fronts. I'm just going to do a couple before I get onto the flower. I'll put that together and come back to the leaves. And then what I'm going to do with those is, with the brush that I've used for the burgundy, I'm just going to go around the edge and just give them a little bit of a touch up on the very edge. You're only just very lightly catching the edge of the leaves with this burgundy. And put that on there to dry. Same on this one. Just here and then, you don't have to go all over it with it, just to give it a little bit of character. There we are. I don't know whether you can see that or not. I'll put that to one side to dry. And then I'm also going to do the same thing with the calyx on the back. What have I just done with my brush? I'm doing it again. I've just put my brush. There it is. It's just one of those days. I have these senior moments. This is what happens when you get older. Now the curved down part, this is the part that you're going to see. The underside is the curved up part of the calyx. Because these are soft, I can just reshape them if they go out of shape when I'm dusting these. The one advantage of doing them when they're still a bit soft is that sometimes the colour can go on a bit better, take a bit better, I should say. And then the rounded ones that I've done, don't matter so much about the inside on these, because it's the back of the cup that you're going to actually see. It might be better if you put it on your finger. It's a bit messy doing it this way, but if they're still soft, you need that little bit of support to keep them in shape. the other two. One. I'm not even going to bother dusting the inside because you're not going to see that. And the inside of anything, leaves and calyx and things like that, are always a bit light. We'll just give it a slight waft over, so if it does show, then it doesn't matter. But the only people who are going to know are you, our secret. Right, so that's those pieces done. We've done the greens, we've done the yellows, and we've done the white ones. So the only part that I need that green again is the centre. That's the dry one. So I'm going to dust all over this with the same green. With that, get rid of that, and then back to my burgundy brush again. There's some burgundy on there, and I'm just going to catch the top edges of the centre part. Like that. Okay. To one side. Right, now assembly of the flower. So again, I'm going to go back to my Nile green tape and start my tape off underneath that. Come right up to the top, and what I need to do now is to tape these first lot of petals. So there's a lot of these. I don't suppose it makes any difference which way you turn them around. I'm going to do some slightly different ways because these will be, it's difficult to tell when you look at the actual flower which way they're supposed to be, because it just looks so frilly and fluffy in the centre with all these whitey coloured flowers. Just move those round and I can get another one in there like that. Then start putting the other ones in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 5 in there, so we're just going to put these in between. So I'm just going to bend those out a little bit so I don't knock too many pieces off. I'm quite liking this peony. This is looking really nice. And people, considering I've never done this one before, I think I'm quite chuffed with myself. Because normally with a lot of the videos you notice that I've actually made the flowers before I've done it, so I've got one to show you. So I'm just going to tape down in between now before I start putting the outer petals on. The reason being, when you put petals in place, then they have stay together a lot better because your tape's a little bit sticky. They don't move around quite as much. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. That looks really nice. Makes a nice flower on its own, doesn't it? A bit like a carnation. Maybe this could be a different way of doing a carnation. So I'll start my tape off again underneath the petals and then start putting the petals in. Bend your wires down so your petals are going to come out. Like that. Now you need to make sure that you've cupped your petals round the bottom. I didn't mention that when I was doing them, and I should have done, because otherwise they won't fit round the base. It's like anything that you do with lilies and that type of thing. You need to have cupped the base of your petals for them to fit in. Get them right up to the base of your central flowers, like I've done there, if you can see that. So just one more to go in there. So you're basically going to have 2 rows of 5 petals. Not quite as many petals as there are in a normal peony. A normal peony has a hell of a lot of petals in it. I think I usually put about 10 for each layer in. Something like that. There's quite a lot. Right, so once you've got your first layer of petals on, then your next layer of petals go on so that they go in between the previous layer like that. Now if you're clever, some people have difficulty with it, put your petals together while they're still soft, and it is easier to keep all your petals up and close together if you do them while they're soft, but a lot of people have difficulty doing it that way. I sometimes struggle when they're soft because wires come out and all sorts of things like that. It takes a lot of practice, so doing it dry like this is easier as long as you've cupped your petals properly to make sure that they go together a lot easier. Last one. Now before I tape down, I'm going to pull all these petals down to make sure they're in tight. If you do that, then it makes sure your petals are not going to move around. Make sure they're right down to the tape. And then you can tape down. Then if you've got any adjustment to do, then your petals will stay where they're supposed to. I've got some wire showing them, just taping it back up again just to make sure I've got all that covered. Then you can play around with your petals then to make sure you've got them in the right position. There we are. So that's the punch bowl peony. Right, now then, onto the leaves. I'm just going to pop that to one side for a minute while I do the leaves. I'm going to turn the camera off now and I'm going to colour the rest of the leaves. I'm going to come back in a sec. Right, I've finished colouring all my leaves, so I've got them here. So if we just get them down onto the board here. The only thing I'm not going to do, because these haven't dried yet properly, is varnish them. Because they do need to be varnished afterwards. But what I'll do is I'll finish off doing the flower and put the calyx on, put the leaves together, and then I'll varnish them later. They'll be done before I do a picture, which if you're seeing coming from Facebook, where I've posted in various different groups, you will see them on there. So what I'm going to do is, these are quite flimsy wires that I've got here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a stronger wire to attach them to, I think, for these, so they don't flop around as much. So if I use a 24 gauge wire, if I can get one out. I don't use these very often, so these are pretty well cram packed. There we are, got one. I'm going to cut that into 3. Just when I put them together in a spray, then they'll stay put. So if I start the tape off on this wire, and bring that up, and start my leaves on that, and pull that down, make sure that's tight in, and then I'm going to tape another one on. You could, if you wanted to, do the side leaves a little smaller with a slightly smaller cutter. I haven't done, but you could do if you wanted to. They're slightly different to the arrangement of leaves on a regular peony, what I call a regular peony anyway. That'll be far enough down because that's not going to be seen. And then you just spread your leaves out like that, and put that one out to that side. That's it. So you've got 3 leaves together. Just put these others onto a wire, and then we can get on with the calyx on the back of the peony. And I'm just going to plug in my steamer while I'm doing this. It's already plugged in, we'll switch it on, so that I can steam the flower once I put it all together. Getting your first 2 wires to get going is always difficult. It's easier when you get more than 2 in. So if you're struggling with that, just persevere, take your time. So yeah, that's another one. Just tape down with that. Come on, go. Don't forget to pull your wires down to make sure that they're in tight, so they don't move around. Just switch that off, that's ready. Sorry about that, I've just messed it up. I've just messed up my screen, so I can't see what I'm doing. I should have pointed my steamer elsewhere, shouldn't I? I hope it hasn't steamed up the lens. If it has, I apologise. Mind you though, when it's steamed up, everything looks better, doesn't it? It's like when you've had a few drinks and you're a bit bleary-eyed. Right, so that's those done. Some more tape there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the calyx on the back of the peony. So I'm just going to start my tape off underneath the petals to start off with, and then if you put in the cupped pieces, and you want the cup upwards like that, I'm just going to pull that wire in, that's it. So that's one. Pull that wire down. Then put the, hang on, just adjust that so it goes underneath the petals. There we are. So I've got two in there. I'm just going to pop another one in on this side here. Where's the other one? There it is. Once you get things taped in, you can start adjusting things then to exactly where you want them to be. So go around that. And that wants to come a bit further this way. There we are. So I'm just going to tape down between those just to keep those wires in place. Start the tape off again, and then when you've got your three parts of your back on like that, then you want the curved down pieces then to go in between. And the advantage with putting them in soft, if they're not exactly curved the way you want them to go, you can readjust them to get them the way you want them to be. Just pull the wires down so we've got those in position. That was to go in between those two there. That's in the right spot, that's in the right spot. So I can tape down now. So we've just turned that upside down so you can see where the calyx are. So those can be bent a little bit more up that way. Don't forget, get hold of the wire when you're doing this. Don't try and do it without getting hold of the wire, otherwise your wires will probably come out. So that's how we've got the calyx on the back. So I can now steam this. Switch that back on again. Turn it away from my camera so you don't steam up again. I don't always show the steaming part. I have done on some of the videos, but not on all of them. Right, that's enough. That's as long as you need in the steam, because I've just got a calyx that's just flopped back a bit there because I've steamed it with them still being soft. So there we are. That's the finished peony. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going back to the shoes, and I'm going to do a fantasy shoe this time. So anybody who hasn't watched my shoe videos, then please go along and have a look. I've done 3 so far, so this will be the 4th shoe in the series. Take care, stay safe, and see you in the next video.